Admiral Sarah Chen stood silently at the wide observation window of Luna Base Command, her eyes locked on the blue marble of Earth hanging in space. She had waited years for this moment, decades even, and now it had arrived in the form of a single message, transmitted through the quantum communications array. It changed everything. The staff gathered behind her, whispering among themselves, uncertain what this meant for humanity. Chen raised one hand, signaling for the message to be replayed. A holographic screen flickered to life, revealing a being unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Iridescent scales covered its body and several eyes blinked in sequence. Yet it spoke perfect English. People of Earth, we are the Imperial Collective, a peaceful confederation of species seeking diplomatic relations with emerging civilizations. We request permission to enter your solar system with our diplomatic fleet to establish formal contact. The room fell silent. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, head of xenolinguistics, furrowed his brow and shook his head in disbelief. They learned our language perfectly before even speaking to us. The computational power needed for that level of language acquisition is immense. Chen finished his thought, her voice calm but firm. She had spent 20 years building the Earth Defense Initiative under layers of secrecy. Most of the world had no idea what had been developed hidden beneath their feet and across the solar system. Quantum shield generators buried under every major city. Swarms of artificial intelligence-powered nanofighters concealed in asteroid bases, scattered throughout space, and stealth platforms beyond the range of conventional detection. It was all there, waiting. What is the status of Project Prometheus? Chen asked. Turning to Dr. Maya Patel, the lead weapons scientist. Patel tapped her tablet rapidly. The quantum entanglement drives are operational. We can activate the full defense grid in under 3 minutes if needed. The new targeting systems achieved a 99.9% accuracy rating in simulations. Chen gave a single nod, her eyes returning to the holographic tactical display showing the incoming Imperial fleet. Their ships were massive, some nearly the size of Manhattan, but something about the way they moved disturbed her instincts. They were too deliberate, too structured, not the formation of diplomats, but of invaders. Commander James Wu leaned forward, studying the patterns. Those are not diplomatic vessels, he said. They're masking weapons. Energy emissions, I am sure of it. Chen did not argue. She opened a command channel linking all Earth defense installations. This is Admiral Chen, she said clearly. Initiate silent running protocol. All systems are to remain powered and ready, but completely dark. If they are here for peace, they will never know. We were prepared if they are not. Then they are in for a surprise. The next 12 hours were a quiet storm of preparation. Every system was checked, double-checked, then brought to readiness without revealing itself. The fleet continued its approach, maintaining the diplomatic pretense. Meanwhile, backroom analysts working under Chen detected scans being sent from the alien ships, probing Earth's defenses, attempting to analyze weaknesses. What they found was misleading intentionally. So primitive radar scattered orbital platforms and minimal resistance. It was all a facade. The real power of Earth remained hidden. 20 years ago, when Chen first proposed the Earth Defense Initiative, many had called her paranoid. Some laughed outright, but she convinced enough world leaders to act on the possibility that humanity's first contact might not be friendly. She argued that appearances mattered, that it was better to look weak while building strength in secret, and so Earth had done just that. The Imperial fleet entered Earth's orbit slowly. Their massive ships cast long shadows over major cities. From Luna Base, Chen watched as the largest of their vessels dispatched a shuttle to the United Nations. Its leader stepped out and delivered a flawless speech, filled with charm and talk of peace and cooperation. But Chen was not convinced. Micro-drones hidden throughout the assembly detected faint electromagnetic pulses being transmitted, hidden signals likely intended to disable or interface with planetary defense systems. The systems they sought did not exist, at least not in any place they could reach or control. "They are testing us," she muttered to no one in particular. She turned to Patel again. "How long?" "Until their main fleet arrives." Patel checked the readings from the quantum sensors. "We are detecting subtle subspace distortions based on the data. I estimate less than 6 hours. Then we have our timeline," Chen replied. "Let them think their plan is working. Let them believe we are primitive and defenseless. When their real fleet arrives, they will learn the first truth about Earth. We are never as helpless as we appear." The command staff returned to their positions, and Chen allowed herself the briefest smile. The aliens believed they were facing a young, naive species, one ripe for conquest and assimilation, but they were wrong. The trap was already set. All that remained was to wait for it to spring. Hours passed as tension thickened in every command post across the planet. All systems remained in stealth mode as the Imperial fleet hovered just above the surface. The world continued its day as usual, unaware of the eyes watching from space. But beneath the calm surface, Earth was a coiled spring ready to explode into action. The hidden defense platforms positioned for years along orbital paths and in deep space were all active in silent readiness. The Earth was not a helpless child, it was a fortress. Then the moment came. Just as predicted, more ships tore open the fabric of space at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of them, massive warships, bristling with weapons capable of reducing entire continents to ash. It was not a visit, it was an invasion. Chen stood in Luna Base watching the tactical display. "They are arriving exactly as expected," she said quietly. "Standard conquest fleet formation. No diplomatic signatures anymore, no subtle pretense." She turned toward her staff, her voice calm but hard. "All right then, it is time to show them who we really are." The so-called diplomatic vessel dropped its mask immediately. A new message was broadcast to the United Nations. Earth was to surrender immediately and be absorbed into the Imperial Collective or face total annihilation. They were given 1 hour to decide. "So diplomatic," Wu said dryly. "Shall we offer them our reply?" Admiral Chen nodded and spoke into the quantum command network. "All stations, this is Admiral Chen. Operation Lazarus is now active. Execute on my mark." Across the solar system, installations that had slept for decades awakened. In the asteroid belt, massive hangars opened, disgorging swarms of autonomous fighters designed to be invisible to standard detection beneath Earth's oceans. Shield generators powered up, drawing energy from sources hidden beneath the seafloor, their signals masked by the planet's natural magnetic field. The Imperial fleet advanced as if following a textbook maneuver. They expected no resistance. Their scans told them this planet was still locked in the pre-faster-than-light stage of development, just as Earth intended. "They are launching their first wave," Maya reported. 5,000 attack craft targeting major cities. Exactly what the simulations predicted. Chen allowed herself the faintest smile. "They are so predictable it is almost disappointing." She opened the command channel. "All units execute Phase 1. Let us show them what Earth really is." As the alien ships descended, their targeting systems began to fail. Quantum interference disrupted their sensors, scrambling their software and making it impossible to lock onto targets. Then the shield generators activated. Invisible domes of twisted space and time formed over every major city. The alien weapons impacted harmlessly. Their energy dispersed into quantum foam. From the alien command ship, a furious voice boomed over all frequencies. "This is impossible. Their technology is primitive. How can they? Chen made a gesture and cut off the transmission. Launch the swarm, she said. Thousands of nanofighters burst forth from hidden bases. Each one moved with uncanny precision, equipped with advanced targeting AI and armed with weapons that bypassed conventional energy defenses. They tore through the invading craft like paper. The first wave was obliterated. In under 5 minutes, Commander Wu reported 0 casualties on our side. They are preparing for their second wave, he added. Then we escalate, Chen said. Deploy the Leviathans. Massive shapes rose from the depths of Earth's oceans. For years they had lain in silence, their true nature disguised as deep sea research facilities. Now they surfaced, revealing themselves as floating fortresses, each one a weapon of unimaginable power. Wrapped in space-bending shields and bristling with quantum weaponry, they changed the battlefield. The alien fleet hesitated for the first time. Sensors struggled to make sense of what they were seeing. Finally, they began to realize Earth had not just prepared. It had predicted every move. Chen turned to her team, watching the data unfold. This is what we waited for. This is our moment. Make sure they never forget it. And in that moment, with the stars above and the Earth below, humanity stepped forward not as victims, not as prey, but as a force ready to defend its world with everything it had. As the stars shifted and the last of the so-called diplomatic vessels hovered above Earth's atmosphere, Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of Luna Base Command, surrounded by her elite staff, watching the unfolding scenario with sharp precision. Her instincts told her this was only the beginning. She had spent 20 years building a defense system so advanced and hidden that no alien race could detect it until it was far too late. Now that investment was about to be tested by the greatest threat humanity had ever faced. The Imperial fleet loomed in orbit, immense ships casting wide shadows across major cities on Earth. They maintained their peaceful pretense, but the deception was transparent to those who knew what to look for. Their ships constantly scanned for energy signatures, their sensors working overtime, trying to unravel what they believed were primitive systems. What they found only confirmed their arrogant assumptions. Radar outposts scattered across continents, low tech orbital satellites, weak and uncoordinated defenses. It was all a lie, carefully constructed to bait the enemy. Back in the early days of the Earth Defense Initiative, Chen had told her allies that their greatest weapon would be misdirection. If Earth appeared weak, invaders would underestimate them, and if invaders underestimated Earth, they would walk into a trap from which there would be no escape. That principle had guided every strategic decision, every technological development, every quiet launch from obscure desert bases and oceanic trenches. Now, as the Imperial Collective moved forward, they were seeing only what humanity wanted them to see. Inside the United Nations building, the alien emissary gave a speech full of charm and carefully orchestrated goodwill. It spoke of peace, cooperation, and interstellar brotherhood. But beneath the surface, Chen knew the truth. The being was broadcasting electromagnetic pulses, targeting security systems, hoping to disable automated defenses that did not exist. The decoy systems were already feeding them false data. All around the hall, micro-drones collected intelligence, monitoring every gesture, every signal, and transmitting them in real time to Chen and her staff. "They are gauging our response," Chen said softly, watching the data stream across her command screen, looking for signs of fear, looking for evidence of hidden defenses, but they will find nothing. Just as planned, Patel leaned over the data table, scanning through frequencies. Their communications are clean, no signs of emotion or uncertainty. Their deception is cold and clinical. They believe they have control. Wu added, "They see us as a backwater species just beginning to understand the cosmos. They think this is easy, Then they are about to be educated, Chen replied, her voice steel. The hours passed with excruciating tension as the diplomatic dance continued. The Imperial ships maintained their presence without initiating a full-scale assault. But the analysis teams were already detecting subtle shifts in position, changes in sensor sweeps, and minute power fluctuations that hinted at weapons systems charging beneath the surface. It is like watching predators circle their prey. Wu muttered, "And they are getting hungry?" Then the data changed. Quantum sensors detected ruptures in space far beyond Pluto. The real fleet was arriving. Massive vessels emerged from subspace, hundreds of them moving in formation. Their energy signatures dwarfed those of the diplomatic vessels. Everything about their presence screamed conquest. "They are not even pretending anymore," Chen observed flatly. "They think they have us cornered." Patel studied the readings based on current projections. "We have just under 6 hours until full fleet integration. Then they will begin their attack." Chen stood straight and walked to the command podium. "Activate full defense readiness." She said, "Operation Lazarus is a go, but we remain dark until Phase 2. Do not fire, do not reveal. Keep all systems cloaked." The staff moved. With purpose, every member handpicked for their expertise and nerves of steel. Around Earth, hidden installations stirred into silent activity. Deep under oceans, shield generators absorbed energy rising toward full capacity. In the asteroid belt, camouflaged hangars opened silently, releasing automated fighters into cold space, like hunters waiting in tall grass. Earth's defenses prepared without a sound. Then it began. The diplomatic fleet revealed its true intentions. Their spokesperson, now a war commander, delivered an ultimatum to the United Nations: surrender or be annihilated. "You have 1 hour to decide," they said coldly. Wu looked at Chen. "Shall we respond?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Initiate defensive shield grid on silent mode. Prepare swarm units for coordinated release." This is not a test from underground bunkers and submerged facilities. The real face of Earth's military emerged, but still hidden, still cloaked, still letting the enemy believe Earth was weak. "They think this will be a quick strike," Chen said. "Let them think that the alien warships began their opening maneuver." 5,000 fighter craft launched in unison, aimed directly at the major cities of Earth. Their goal was to cause chaos, disrupt communication, and break morale. It was the textbook opening salvo of a planetary invasion, but Earth had rewritten the textbook long ago. Maya reported from her station, "They are approaching attack vectors. We have full tracking. The interference net is calibrated. They will enter the distortion fields within 90 seconds. Chen nodded. "Begin shield activation Phase 1, passive until engagement." As the alien fighters entered the upper atmosphere, something unexpected happened to them. Their navigation systems began to fail. Targeting became inconsistent. AI systems reported data loss and false readings. Inside the cockpits of the alien craft, pilots scrambled to understand what was happening. They were not being attacked yet, but their systems were collapsing from within. Then the invisible domes activated twisted fields of energy wrapped around cities, diverting the incoming attacks like rivers flowing around stone. The first wave of weapons fire vanished into harmless bursts of light and quantum distortion. "Impossible," a voice cried across open channels. "How can this be? They have no such technology." "They do." Now Chen replied to no one in particular. Her eyes locked on the display, showing thousands of enemy units confused and stalling in midair. "Launch the swarm." With that command, thousands of nanofighters erupted from every hidden launch point. Swarming together into complex formations, they closed in on the alien ships. With silent purpose, their weapons bypassed shields, their movements too fast and unpredictable for alien countermeasures. In minutes, the skies cleared as the first wave was utterly destroyed. 0 casualties, Wu reported calmly. All targets neutralized. Prepare for Phase 2. Chen ordered ready the Leviathans from the darkest trenches of the oceans. Ancient shapes rose Leviathan-class carriers, mobile fortresses that carried enough firepower to rival any capital ship surfaced with thunderous force. Each one brought quantum disruption fields and heavy weaponry to the fight. The alien fleet began to shift its formation, retreating slightly for the first time as their sensors adjusted to this new threat. "They are learning," Wu said, "but not fast enough." Patel checked her console. "They are deploying secondary waves, more coordinated. This one aimed at orbital control." "They are probing us," Chen replied. "But they are still thinking in terms of dominance. They believe brute force wins all. They do not yet understand what they are facing." Back in orbit, the diplomatic ship dropped all pretense and began direct coordination with the incoming invasion fleet. They consolidated into a battle sphere, their strongest ships at the core, in a classic strategy meant to focus firepower into a single overwhelming strike. The goal was to obliterate Earth's defenses in one synchronized blast. "Let them gather," Chen said. "We are ready." "Is the cascade prepared?" Patel asked. "Quantum resonance charged and stable. They will not detect it in time. Solar radiation masks the readings. Then we strike on my mark. Execute delta pattern." The nanoswarms reorganized, surrounding the battlesphere in perfect geometric harmony. Each fighter moved with programmed precision, forming a web of entanglement that interfered with energy distribution and weapon alignment. The Leviathans submerged, again appearing to retreat. "They believe we are falling back," Wu said quietly. "Let them believe that." Patel spoke, initiating the quantum resonance cascade. A new wave of distortion pulsed through space, not as a weapon but as a field of pure interference, disrupting the very structure of space-time around the enemy fleet. Their communications failed, coordination fell apart, and energy fields collapsed. The entire battlesphere wavered like a mirage. Now Chen said, "Launch micro-strikes. Insert quantum virus." Protocols. The nanofighters struck surgical hits, not to destroy but to infect computer systems. Across the alien ships began to receive corrupted data files, hijacked routines and messages of truth, schematics of Earth's defenses, footage of the trap intelligence on how Earth had been watching the alien probes for 15 years. "They know," Wu said calmly. "They finally understand," Rodriguez confirmed. "Message incoming from their flagship. They are requesting ceasefire." Chen nodded. "Put it through." Crystalline being appeared on the screen, scarred and confused. Its many eyes locked on Chen. "You knew we were coming," it said quietly. 15 years ago, we detected your survey probes." Chen answered. "We knew what you were planning. We underestimated you gravely." "Yes, you did," Chen replied. "Now you are going to learn something we call diplomatic relations." The moment the ceasefire was acknowledged, everything inside Luna Base shifted from raw readiness to cautious control. But Admiral Sarah Chen did not relax, not even slightly. She stood in the center of the command deck, her eyes still scanning every tactical feed, every energy fluctuation on the sensor readouts. A request for negotiation from the Imperial flagship had been received and accepted, but Chen knew too much about war to trust it completely. This was not surrender. It was a delay, or worse, a setup. The image of the Imperial Admiral appeared on the main screen again, crystalline in form, fractured in several places from the intense energy feedback of their failed cascade. Its voice was less mechanical now, more deliberate, almost strained. "You detected our fleet long before we arrived and chose to let us come. You prepared for this," Chen nodded. "Yes, we did. You assumed we were unprepared because we did not flaunt our strength. That is the mistake every conqueror makes. Eventually, someone decides to fight back harder than expected. The alien did not answer right away. Instead, its many eyes flicked toward the members of Chen's command team watching, the silent coordination behind her. There was no chaos, no desperation, only focus and readiness. You showed restraint. The alien finally said, "You could have annihilated us completely. Why hold back? Because we did not want to start our journey into the galactic community by becoming what we fought against," Chen answered calmly. "And because we are not done yet." The diplomatic negotiations began immediately in a secure quantum channel monitored from both sides. But Chen made it clear from the start that Earth would accept nothing less than full independence, complete recognition as a sovereign power, and the acknowledgement that no Imperial vessel would enter their solar system again without explicit permission. The Imperial envoy protested at first, citing ancient doctrines and long-standing protocols, but Chen was unmoved. She had one final move to play. "There is something you should know," she said toward the end of the first session. "What you saw today was our defensive capability. Only what we needed to show you to survive." "You have more," the Imperial Admiral asked, its voice laced with hesitation. "Much more," Chen replied. "We spent 2 decades preparing not just to defend, but to make sure if we ever had to fight beyond our home, we would be ready for that too. It is in everyone's best interest that you never see those weapons in use." The conversation ended there, but the impact of her words would spread far beyond that transmission. In the following hours, as the remains of the Imperial fleet sat, suspended within the quantum inversion field, unable to move or communicate, other systems across the galaxy picked up the emergency signals. The undefeated Imperial Collective had not only failed to conquer Earth, but had suffered a devastating loss at the hands of a species they had dismissed as backward and primitive. Reactions came fast and wide. Dozens of alien races, some subjugated, others isolated, began sending diplomatic feelers toward Earth. Many were simply curious, some sought protection. A few offered alliances. The one thing they all shared was the desire to understand how humanity had done it. How had a species only recently discovered interstellar travel defeated the most powerful empire in known space? Inside Luna Base, Chen was already preparing for the next step. She sat in her office, surrounded by her closest advisors, reviewing reports and updates. "The Imperial fleet is still trapped," Wu said. "Their internal systems are locked. Their communication relays are dormant. They cannot even initiate emergency self-destruct." "How long can we maintain the inversion field?" Chen asked. Patel answered, "With current power levels, indefinitely, but it is draining our grid. If we want to keep full defensive readiness, we will need to phase them out in stages." "Do it," Chen said. "Start reducing their capabilities, ship by ship. Give them mobility back slowly, but only after we have extracted every ounce of information from their systems, and only after they have signed the terms of surrender." "Understood." Rodriguez stepped in next, reading from his display. "The term Terra Doctrine is spreading. Several independent civilizations are beginning to adopt our method. Hide your strength until it is needed." Chen raised an eyebrow. "They are calling it that." "Yes, Admiral." "In your honor, it seems." Chen gave a small nod. She was not one for titles or honors, but she understood the importance of symbols. This was not just about Earth anymore. This was about how the galaxy would see them going forward, and how other small civilizations might survive the future. News feeds from across the solar system began transmitting updates. As Earth's population learned the truth about the battle that had been fought above their heads, the reaction was one of awe and pride. Cities celebrated quietly at first, then with overwhelming unity. From the streets of New York to the coasts of Tokyo and Cape Town, people stood beneath the invisible protection of quantum shields and looked up into the stars with a new understanding. They had faced extinction and won. For many, it was a spiritual moment, a revelation that humanity had not only survived, but evolved. That despite centuries of division and conflict, the species had come together when it truly mattered. Chen watched footage of the celebrations from her desk, but her expression remained thoughtful. Not triumphant, the battle was over. The war was not. The galaxy had seen what Earth could do in defense. Now they would want to know what Earth could do in peace. She turned back to the main star map displaying possible routes for expansion and diplomacy. Ambassador teams were being assembled and the first human embassy ships were nearly ready for launch. Their destinations included former imperial strongholds, neutral trade worlds, and isolated systems long thought unreachable. "We are calling this Phase 2, Wu said, leaning over her shoulder. "Show the galaxy we can lead as well as fight." "And we can," Chen replied, "but only if we stay true to what got us here. Preparation, unity, resolve." Patel looked up from her workstation. Her eyes were tired but determined. "Admiral, the quantum physics community is still reviewing our inversion sequence. They say it could revolutionize everything from transport to power generation." "Good," Chen said. "Keep the research contained for now. The more they think we have already shown everything, the better. Our real advantage stays hidden." "What about offensive deployment?" Wu asked. "Not yet," Chen answered. "We lead with peace. That was always the goal. The defense just gave us the chance to reach it." By the end of the third day, Earth's solar system had become the most heavily monitored space in the quadrant, not by human sensors but by others. Curious watchers seeking to understand how a primitive world managed to survive what should have been an impossible war, and perhaps wondering if Earth might become something more than just another planet in the stars. Chen walked through the observation deck once more, looking down at the blue and green sphere that had been home her entire life. It still looked the same, peaceful, beautiful, fragile, but it was no longer defenseless and no longer alone. 20 years ago, she had stood in a darkened room, proposing an impossible project to skeptical leaders. She had been called paranoid, a warmonger, unrealistic, and yet she had persevered, not for glory, not for war, but for the belief that one day Earth would face a threat no one else saw coming. Now she had lived to see that threat defeated. Now she would see what came next. "Begin preparations for outreach missions," she said to her staff. "Rotate personnel from the front lines. Give them time to rest, they have earned it. And begin debriefing sessions with the first contact teams. I want every encounter documented, every question, every opportunity for growth listed in detail." "And what of the Imperial fleet?" Wu asked. "They stay until we are satisfied," Chen replied firmly. "No faster than they deserve." Outside the walls of Luna Base, the stars continued to shift and glow, silent in their distant beauty. But within that silence came a new voice, a human voice, a voice that had refused to be silenced by power or fear. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again, and Earth was ready. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the central command hub of Luna Base as the final terms of surrender were signed by the Imperial representative. The battle had ended in Earth's favor, but the galaxy was still adjusting to what had happened. The Imperial Collective had been undefeated for over 3,000 years. Their expansion was once thought inevitable. Now that illusion was shattered, and Earth, the once ignored and underestimated world, had become the new symbol of resistance and resilience. Within hours of the announcement, diplomatic requests began to flood in. Some came from long-oppressed species looking for protection. Others came from curious observers who had watched the quantum battle from afar. through hidden sensors or intercepted transmissions. They wanted to know who the humans were, how they had accomplished the impossible, and most importantly, whether they were friend or foe. Sarah Chen had expected this. She had prepared for it even during the early stages of Project Prometheus and the Earth Defense Initiative. It had never just been about survival. It was about sending a message. If you try to conquer us, you will fail. And if you come seeking peace, then you must come with respect. In the days following the ceasefire, Earth began to transform. The same factories and laboratories that once produced the nanofighter swarms and quantum weaponry were now adapting their systems for exploration and diplomacy. Luna Base became the central hub for interstellar affairs, housing representatives not only from Earth but from neutral species who wished to broker peace or trade. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet still hung suspended in the outer orbit, their ships stripped of weapons and isolated within the quantum inversion field, remained inactive, a reminder of what had transpired. Chen refused to release them all at once. Instead, she allowed them limited function, one ship at a time under strict supervision. Each crew was interrogated, debriefed, and scanned by Earth AI systems. To ensure compliance, Rodriguez stood beside her as they watched the field slowly pulse with containment energy. One of the capital ships had just been reactivated enough to send a message to its home system under Earth's observation. Their transmissions are being monitored, Chen said softly. Not just by us, everyone out there is watching. Rodriguez nodded. Other empires, other alliances, even rogue civilizations. The news has spread faster than any of us expected. Chen glanced at the tactical board, which now displayed not just the solar system, but sectors far beyond markers, lit up where communication had been received. Red for Imperial responses, green for neutral, blue for Allied interest. How many contacted us so far? She asked. 63. Separate species, Wu replied, stepping into the room. A few are sending full diplomatic envoys. Some just sent greetings. But the pattern is clear. Earth is no longer seen as isolated. Chen studied the data, then turned back to Patel, who had been quietly adjusting power distribution across the defense grid. How are the shields holding? Patel answered. All urban shield grids remain at full strength. Subsea generators are stable, and Leviathan carriers are back in deep recharge mode. We are at 78% defense readiness, and the inversion field holding at full integrity. The energy draw is within sustainable levels. Good, keep it that way. Chen turned away from the board and walked slowly across the room, past the desks and consoles where her team continued working with disciplined focus. She paused at a window, looking out into the void beyond the station. From this vantage point, she could see Earth spinning quietly, bathed in sunlight. It looked calm, serene, even vulnerable. But she knew better. That planet below now represented one of the most heavily fortified systems in the galaxy. We cannot afford to be arrogant, she said quietly. We won because we prepared, not because we are better, not because we are stronger, but because we knew what was coming and acted before it arrived. Rodriguez joined her at the window. Some are calling it the miracle of soul. It was not a miracle, it was work, planning, sacrifice. You're right, he said, but still, it gives people something to believe in, and belief is powerful. She nodded once thoughtfully, then turned back toward the main room. Where are we with the new AI networks? Patel answered. The next generation targeting systems are being integrated into the planetary defense platforms. We are also adapting the virus injection tech into non-lethal forms for cybersecurity and infrastructure defense. What about civilian systems controlled rollout scheduled for next quarter? Only after all potential risks have been cleared. We are not rushing anything good. Make sure that continues. The last thing we need is overconfidence or sloppy execution. We built this network to protect people. Let it stay that way. Wu looked up from his screen. Admiral, the collective just issued a galactic-wide announcement. They formally acknowledge their defeat and have agreed to step back from all expansion activity for the next standard cycle. That is roughly 15 Earth years. Chen raised an eyebrow. A retreat in public. That is a first. They are trying to save face. Wu replied, but their empire is fracturing, reports indicate. Several of their member species are questioning their leadership, some even talking about independence. The ripple effect is starting, Chen said quietly. One fight won at home and the whole structure starts to shift. And not just them. Rodriguez added, we are seeing increased chatter from species previously thought extinct or in hiding. Some are preparing to emerge again. Now that there is hope, Chen turned back to the main display, pulling up the list of potential diplomatic routes. The old maps drawn by exploration vessels decades ago were now being redrawn. Routes that had once been ignored or blocked by Imperial control were now wide open. Earth would not just visit them, it would lead missions into them. We send messages to every independent system. She said, let them know Earth is open for dialogue, trade, mutual defense. We are not just here to survive anymore, we are here to participate. And the collective Wu asked, what if they try to reverse course in 5 or 10 years? Then we will be ready again, Chen replied. Not with more weapons. Not first at least, but with alliances, with networks, with truth. They underestimated what we could build in secret. Now let them see what we can build in the light. In the following weeks, Luna Base was expanded. Satellite embassies were established in high orbit. Artificial moons equipped with AI-governed infrastructures became waypoints for diplomacy. The Leviathan carriers, once hidden beneath oceans, were repurposed to serve as mobile consulates, their presence alone enough to dissuade aggression. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet was finally allowed limited mobility. Their capital ships returned to their own systems under escort, accompanied by warning beacons and recorded footage of their failed invasion. Any empire or rogue state who dared to question the events would have undeniable proof. The defeat had happened and it had not been close. Inside her office, Admiral Chen reviewed one last report. The scientific team had confirmed that the inversion field used against the collective was the most complex controlled quantum phenomenon in recorded history. Theoretical physics journals were already preparing papers, trying to decode what Earth had accomplished during the battle. We just rewrote the book on reality, Patel had said earlier, and the ink is still drying. Chen closed the file and leaned back in her chair, letting out a slow breath. Everything had changed, but her work was not done. The galaxy had seen Earth fight. Now it would watch Earth rise. She stood and activated the holomap, displaying the expanding network of new alliances, new missions, new chances to lead, not with fear, but with integrity. Prepare the next phase, she said quietly. Yes, Admiral Wu replied. Where do we begin? We begin where we always should, she said. With the people, build trust, build peace. And if war ever comes again, they will not just fear us, they will follow us. As the stars glittered in the distance and Earth turned slowly beneath the quiet strength of its shields, one truth had become undeniable. Humanity was no longer the child among giants. It was something else now, a force that even the stars would learn to respect. The days that followed, Earth's unexpected and decisive victory over the Imperial collective, were filled with movement and decision-making. But beneath the flurry of diplomatic arrangements and rebuilding efforts, a single question remained. How had the Imperial fleet failed so completely? And more importantly, what would they do next? Inside the strategic analysis, Room of Lunabase. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a wide holographic display that replayed key moments from the battle. The projection showed Imperial fighters scattering as their targeting systems failed, shield signatures collapsing as the nanofighters sliced through them, and the powerful singularity cascade being caught, reversed, and contained within the quantum inversion field. Rodriguez stepped beside her, watching the recording with folded arms. The moment where their entire synchronized weapons array dropped out of alignment was the turning point, he said softly. After that, everything they tried just fell apart. They relied too much on assumption, Chen replied. They believed their superiority made them untouchable, but arrogance is a dangerous ally in war. Patel entered with a fresh report, her eyes tired but focused. Admiral, we completed a full systems review of our countermeasures. All AI targeting systems performed within optimal range. The cascade disruption reached 99.7% containment. Their command and control protocols were never able to fully re-establish. That small margin matters, Chen said. Even a fraction of unpredictability could have changed the outcome. Next time we close that gap completely, Patel nodded and placed a data slate on the table. One more thing, we finished decrypting their final contingency signal, the one they sent after requesting the ceasefire. It activated a protocol within their remaining ships. We are calling it Omega. What did it do? Rodriguez asked. It rewrote the structure of their surviving vessels, transformed them into a unified energy lattice, intended to collapse into a self-sustaining singularity. If we pushed further, they were willing to destroy the entire solar system rather than accept defeat. Wu said, grimly reviewing the data. That level of fanaticism is not common. Even for them, Chen stood silently processing the revelation. Her instincts had warned her not to trust the ceasefire fully, and now she had proof the enemy had not simply surrendered. They had planned one last act of destruction. They had nearly turned defeat into mutual annihilation. How close did it get? Wu asked. Patel took a breath. Before the inversion field neutralized the effect, the singularity cascade reached 40% spatial instability. Time distortions had already started to form on the outer edge of the Imperial sphere. Another minute and we might not have been able to stop it. Chen turned from the display and faced her team quietly, her voice low but unwavering. Then we owe our survival not just to strength, but to timing. 1 minute more and we might have lost everything. Rodriguez pulled up a different set of files. Our quantum AI picked up something else buried in the signal, not part of the Omega protocol. A message sent using a highly fragmented encoding system. It is still partially incomplete, but the meaning is clear. Show me, Chen said. The screen flickered and then displayed a line of text in simplified translation. Collective will not fall. It will become something new. They are not retreating, Wu said. They are evolving. That changes the game, Chen replied. She stepped away from the table and walked to the central map display, which now extended beyond the Milky Way arm, highlighting potential collective fallback points and fringe colonies. Deep red indicators pulsed softly across uncharted regions. What does new mean to a civilization like the collective? She asked. No one answered. Patel finally said, they have never been forced to adapt before. Every expansion, every conquest was predictable. Now that pattern has been broken, they will seek a new one. Chen turned back to the table. Her voice was sharp and direct. We need to prepare for that. We cannot afford to treat this as a final victory. It was only a beginning. Understood? Wu replied. Then we expand the predictive simulations model, every known collective substructure, and theorize how they might reorganize based on current losses. Rodriguez added, and we should update the diplomatic briefings. Several species have approached us with intelligence offers. in exchange for protection. Some have likely observed collective fallback activity. Coordinate with them, Chen said. Get them what they need, but also what we need. Secure their trust. They reached out to us first. That means something. Yes, Admiral Wu nodded. Outside Luna Base, the Leviathan carriers resumed patrol routes, this time openly. Their surfaces gleamed with reflective armor, catching sunlight, broadcasting their presence across the system. Each one carried both weapons and supplies, now balanced between war readiness and diplomatic logistics. Chen received regular updates from their commanders. Several sectors still showed signs of minor energy fluctuations left behind by the Omega Protocol, traces of dimensional strain slowly dissipating. The physics teams were studying it closely, hoping to unlock deeper applications of the technology used to counter it. In the scientific wing of the base, Patel oversaw a team of researchers experimenting with scaled-down models of the quantum inversion effect. If stabilized for civilian use, it could revolutionize containment, energy distribution, and even transportation across large distances. But Chen had warned them that the tech would remain classified until they could guarantee safety. As for Earth itself, life returned to something close to normal. People worked, studied, lived, and dreamed beneath skies protected by invisible shields that hummed with silent energy. While the masses knew of the battle, most did not understand the full scale of what had occurred. And perhaps that was for the best. In a quiet moment late one night, Chen stood on the observation deck, looking down at the planet, a pale blue dot floating in space, surrounded by stars and shadows. She thought about the millions who had no idea how close they had come to being vaporized. Thought about the engineers who built the nanofighters in secret, the analysts who had decoded alien languages under cover of darkness, the world leaders who had trusted her when others laughed. She thought about what would come next. Rodriguez joined her, his voice soft. We have confirmation. The collective fleet fragments are regrouping on the edge of known space. They are not hiding, they are consolidating. Chen did not turn to look at him. She simply asked, how long? No way to know. Their tech is damaged, their command structure fragmented. But if they find a way to rebuild with everything they now know, it could be months, maybe years. Then we stay ready, she said, because they will not come alone next time. They will come with allies of their own, with new weapons, new doctrine, and maybe even new leaders. And what about us? Rodriguez asked. Are we ready to become more than defenders? Chen finally turned and met his gaze. We have to be. This is not just about Earth anymore. This is about everyone who lives under threat, of empires who conquer by force. We cannot stand by and wait for the next wave to reach us. We lead, or we fall behind. The next morning, Chen held a briefing with her senior team. She outlined a new strategy called Phase 3. It included the expansion of Earth's defensive perimeter to include nearby systems, the deployment of observation outposts along potential invasion vectors, and the establishment of early warning stations equipped with upgraded AI analysis tools. But the heart of Phase 3 was outreach. Every species that had contacted Earth was now being formally invited to a series of open forums designed to build a new kind of alliance, one based on mutual respect and shared protection, not on dominance or fear. Earth would not become the next empire. It would become something better. A foundation. Chen closed the meeting with one final statement. The collective thought they could break us, but all they did was reveal what we are capable of. Now we show the galaxy that our strength is not just in defense. It is in unity, in courage, in vision. And the galaxy was watching Admiral Sarah. Chen stood in the central chamber of Luna Base, her gaze locked on a slowly rotating image of the solar system projected in midair. Each planet was surrounded by a faint protective outline, signifying shield presence, defensive readiness, and energy grid integrity. Around the sun were the markers of human installations, orbital platforms, mining stations, sensor arrays, and dormant fallback weapons. Everything was calm for now, but she knew it was only temporary. The enemy had been beaten, but not broken. Phase 3 of the Earth Defense Initiative was underway, and it was no longer just about defending the planet. It was about safeguarding everything humanity had touched, and everything it would reach in the years to come. It was about being ready for the next threat before it ever reached their doorstep. Chen turned to her team, seated around the room. All were veterans of the battle against the Imperial Collective. All had seen the cost of hesitation and the power of preparation. Status of long range. Sensor, she asked. Rodriguez was first to answer. No signs of foreign fleet activity in the last 72 hours. The collective remains on retreat. Their regrouping appears disorganized at best. Chen nodded, then turned to Patel. How is the integrity of our inversion grid? Patel tapped her display. Quantum stability is at 98%. Inversion reserves remain steady across all 4 anchor stations. We are also reinforcing nodes near Neptune in case we need to generate a rapid field again. The diplomatic routes Wu stood next. Trade lines with 3 new species are active. Initial shipments of rare minerals have passed through checkpoints without incident. We are now a central node in 2 emerging trade networks. Chen gave a slight nod of approval. The past few weeks had been filled with efforts to stabilize Earth's position among the stars. The galaxy had watched them repel an empire, and now it watched as they rose into something more powerful than anyone expected. But that visibility came with risks. Open a private channel, Chen said quietly. The team adjusted their terminals, encrypting the room with full quantum lock protocols. The walls shimmered briefly as the security field engaged. Chen continued. We received an alert from the Orion Array early this morning. Partial quantum breach detected in Sector 19. No known vessels, no confirmed warp signature, but energy readings were just above passive thresholds. Rodriguez frowned. How confident are we that it was not a false signal? Patel answered, not confident at all. The signal was faint, almost intentional. The pattern matched no previous breach events. Chen leaned forward. We cannot assume the collective will make the same mistake twice. Next time they will come hidden, masked behind fractured signals or cloaked movements. What are you suggesting? Wu asked. A field test, Chen replied. Everyone in the room went silent for a moment. Rodriguez spoke first. You mean full deployment, not against an enemy, Chen clarified. As a demonstration, pick a sector outside our core systems, preferably uninhabited. Deploy 1 Leviathan, 2 squadrons of nanofighters, and activate a temporary inversion pulse. We send the message loud and clear that we are still watching. Patel said, that we can still act without hesitation. Exactly, Chen replied. We have shown we can defend. Now we show that our reach extends beyond Earth. It took less than 48 hours for the plan to come together. The chosen sector was an empty stretch of space just beyond the outer edge of the solar system where old Imperial probes had once been spotted. Before the collective invasion, it had been nothing more than a point of curiosity. Now it was a perfect stage. The Leviathan, designated Sentinel-1, departed silently from Earth orbit, followed by 2 wings of nanofighters. Each craft ran on quantum drives that produced no detectable emissions from standard scanners. They moved like ghosts in the void, unseen until they chose otherwise. At Luna Base, Chen monitored the operation with quiet intensity. The operation was being broadcast through secure diplomatic channels to every allied system and several neutral observers. It was not just a show of force, It was a message of deterrence and assurance. As the Leviathan reached its destination, its systems activated in perfect synchronization. Massive solar collectors unfurled, absorbing light and power from the distant sun. Shield arrays deployed, forming an overlapping grid, while the inversion field powered up over the OE. Next 3 hours. Then the pulse fired. A ripple of distorted space spread out from the center of the operation, a low-frequency gravitational wave designed not to harm, but to be noticed. Every sensor in nearby systems picked it up. Every advanced civilization tuned in to observe the signature. They all saw the same thing. Earth still held the advantage. Back at Luna Base, the reaction was immediate. Positive signals poured in from dozens of channels. Allies expressed renewed confidence, observers sent cautious praise. Even former adversaries remained silent, refraining from any provocation. But Chen was not celebrating. She remained focused. That night, as most of the command staff rotated out for rest, Chen stood alone in the operations room, watching the data feeds cycle endlessly across the displays. Her thoughts drifted to the past. The early days of Project Prometheus, the ridicule from skeptics, the accusations of paranoia, the lonely years spent convincing leaders to invest in an invisible threat. Now, those threats were real, and they were evolving. Patel stepped into the room quietly, bringing an update. "Admiral, we finished analysis of the faint signal from Orion. It appears to have originated from an unregistered structure, a satellite of unknown design orbiting a brown dwarf. The signal was not a breach, it was a ping." Chen looked up. "A probe, yes, but not Imperial. At least, not entirely. The energy signature is blended, part Imperial, part unknown." Rodriguez joined them minutes later, confirming the new data. The probe had been watching not just Earth, but other systems recently liberated from collective control. Several minor species who had begun reaching out to Earth after the battle were also observed. "Whoever sent this is tracking our diplomacy," Chen said softly. "Watching who we speak with, watching who responds. That means they see us as more than a threat," Wu added. "They see us as competition." Chen stared at the map displaying Earth's expanding sphere of influence. Red lines marked trade routes. Blue denoted defense corridors, and green pulsed where diplomatic efforts were most active. It looked like a web slowly spreading outward from one small planet. "They do not want another empire," Chen said. "But we are not building one, we are building something different. And that is what they fear," Patel said quietly. Chen tapped the command interface and updated the map. A new objective appeared. "Prepare a diplomatic expedition," she said. "I want representatives from every species we have contact with on that ship. Let them see our methods, our technology, our values. Let them understand what Earth is becoming and where do we send it." Wu asked. Chen pointed to the edge of the map. "We send it to the edge of their surveillance zone," she said directly. "If they want to know who we are, we will show them on our terms." As the orders were relayed and the preparations began, the stars continued to shift around them. Space remained vast, silent, and unpredictable, but Earth was no longer wandering through it alone. It was building bridges, and some of those bridges would lead directly into enemy space. The launch of the diplomatic expedition was not a celebration. It was a statement, a response to silent watchers who had observed the aftermath of Earth's first victory against the Imperial Collective. Admiral Sarah Chen oversaw the final preparations from Luna Base, her expression steady as she reviewed the roster of delegates, engineers, and security personnel being sent aboard the flagship known as Unity-1. The ship itself was unlike anything previously sent into deep space. It was a hybrid of human and repurposed alien design, equipped with multiple propulsion systems, defensive countermeasures, and most importantly, a sophisticated quantum communications hub capable of instant contact across light years. Its mission was to demonstrate Earth's values not only to allies, but to those who still watched from the shadows, calculating and judging. "We are not going to impress," Chen said during the final briefing. "We are going to reveal what we have always believed, that leadership through strength only matters. If it is guided by purpose, we will show them what peace looks like, backed by the will to defend it." Rodriguez, who had been appointed Chief Liaison Officer for the mission, nodded as he reviewed the encrypted data packets to be shared with neutral systems, cultural files, scientific advancements, records of Earth's resilience through the invasion, all carefully curated not to boast, but to educate. The launch window approached quickly. From the main deck of Lunabase Unity, one rose on silent thrusters gliding into orbit with minimal energy signature. The ship was flanked by 2 support vessels, equipped with defensive shielding and AI-managed observation tools. Their presence was not aggressive but precautionary, a reminder that Earth remained watchful even in peace. Within days, the ship reached the edge of the surveillance zone, the same area where the unknown probe had sent its silent ping weeks before. Long-range scanners showed no obvious activity, but energy readings hinted at something dormant, something waiting. "Activate beacon," Chen ordered from her command post back on Luna Base. "Transmit the invitation." Rodriguez acknowledged and initiated the pulse. A wave of quantum data burst from Unity 1, carrying a message in every major language detected during the last cycle. It was an invitation for dialogue, for understanding, for a future not shaped by empires or invasions. For hours, there was no response. Then it came. A transmission filled with distortion, fractured tones, and inconsistent syntax. But beneath the noise was a message. "We are observing. We recognize your strength. We recognize your restraint. Continue forward and you may be recognized further." Chen watched the playback in silence, then instructed her team to begin analysis. It was not a threat. Not exactly, but it was not trust either. It was curiosity mixed with caution. "They are not sure what we are," Chen said quietly. "Not yet. That makes them dangerous," Wu added. "If they feel threatened, they could escalate. If they see potential, they could test us again. Then we give them no reason to see either," Chen replied. "We remain constant, forward-focused, unshaken over the next few days." Unity 1 moved deeper into the sector, launching satellites designed to monitor long-term patterns of gravitational fluctuation and radiation anomalies. Some of the data revealed traces of ancient movement, deep core energy waves similar to those used by the Collective during their failed singularity cascade. But these readings were older than even known. Imperial records suggested there was something else out there, something older, something forgotten. Rodriguez compiled the data and presented his findings to Chen. It appears this sector was not just a fringe outpost. It was once a central hub for energy manipulation, possibly a failed experiment in synthetic dimensional construction. And the Collective knew, Chen asked. They buried it. Rodriguez said, or lost it, or maybe both. But someone still remembers enough to watch, enough to wait. Chen stood by the main projection screen, watching as sectors lit up with new signals, not direct contact but anomalies, noise within noise. Someone or something was listening. Have we heard from any of the species who joined the Alliance after the Collective defeat? She asked. Yes, Wu replied. 3 have sent confirmation signals. They are deploying their own expeditions modeled after Unity 1, style diplomatic. Ships, good, Chen said, let them be seen. Let others know this is not a solitary path. Earth does not walk alone. Meanwhile, back on Unity 1, the crew began cataloging unregistered quantum anomalies. faint pulses that appeared and disappeared at irregular intervals. Unlike the collective tech, these signatures showed variation, as if being adapted and redirected in real time. The science teams grew more concerned. "These are not random," Patel said, during a secure report from the Unity 1 science deck. "They are mapping us, our paths, our scans, our energy usage. Something is studying our behavior. Are we in danger?" Chen asked. "Not yet," Patel replied, "but we are being tested. Then it is time to show what we have learned." Chen said, "No weapons, no threats, just presence. Let them see who we are." In response to the increasing anomalies, Unity 1 deployed its internal projection array. A full scan of its diplomatic data archive was broadcast across a wide radius, a deliberate gesture to remove the need for spying. Replace hidden observation with open transparency. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the sector lit up with energy readings, stronger than anything detected since the battle with the collective. A spatial breach formed at the edge of known space, slowly unraveling with controlled precision. A vessel emerged. It was not collective design. It was older, darker, and laced with unknown materials. It remained still. No message, no movement, just presence. Rodriguez opened a channel unencrypted, unprotected. "This is Unity 1. We represent the people of Earth. We come in peace and preparation. We recognize your presence and acknowledge your right to exist." Within this space, for a full minute, there was silence. Then a voice came. It was not spoken, not translated, but imprinted into the minds of everyone on the bridge. "You are not like them." The message ended just as abruptly inside Luna Base. Chen stood slowly from her chair. That was not a threat. It was recognition, Wu said. Or perhaps warning. "No," Chen replied. "It was observation, becoming understanding." The unknown ship slowly retreated, fading into the spatial anomaly it had arrived through. The energy readings stabilized and the anomalies ceased. But something had changed. Earth had not just reached the edge of known space. It had been seen and it had been acknowledged. Over the following weeks, Unity 1 returned home. The mission was deemed a success, not because of treaties or handshakes, but because of what it revealed. Earth had stepped beyond its orbit, beyond its fear, and had shown its truth to the galaxy. It had survived, it had prepared, it had reached out, and something had reached back. Chen compiled the full report herself, adding one final note to the record before closing it for transmission. In the face of the unknown, Earth remained constant, steady in its values, firm in its purpose, and unwavering in its hope. Let the stars remember the success of Unity. 1 marked a turning point not only for Earth, but for every civilization that had watched in silence, waiting for a signal that change was possible. The moment Earth reached into the unknown and was seen not as prey, but as something worthy of acknowledgement, the balance of power across the galaxy began to shift. Admiral Sarah Chen knew that moment would not last forever. Moments of clarity never did. They were followed by doubt, by questions, by threats not yet revealed. Her job was to ensure that Earth remained ready, even as it stepped into the unfamiliar role of leadership. Back at Luna Base, the command team reviewed new transmissions coming in from multiple corners of known space. Some were messages of curiosity, others were offers of trade protection and mutual defense, but a few were different. They contained phrases that mirrored the collective's ancient dialect, yet bore modifications distinct enough to suggest the rise of a new power. Rodriguez analyzed the symbols closely. "These are not from the collective as we knew them," he said quietly. "Whoever sent this has evolved past their doctrine but retained fragments of it. They are not continuing the old empire, they are repurposing it." "A successor," State Chen said. "Not unexpected." Wu leaned over the main console. If they are trying to preserve the image of power, they may use our encounter with them as a foundation to build their narrative. That we were a fluke. Chen said that Earth got lucky, that the collective underestimated us, and that it will never happen again. Exactly, Wu replied. If they can control the story, they can control the fear. Then we make sure the truth cannot be buried. Chen responded. We begin Phase 4. Phase 4 was not about defense or projection. It was about legacy. It was about making sure that what Earth had done, what it had proven, would not be forgotten or twisted to serve someone else. Chen called it the Archive Initiative. The idea was simple in theory, complex in execution. Earth would distribute self-sustaining quantum archives to allied and neutral systems. These archives would contain verified historical records, scientific knowledge, and cultural material from dozens of civilizations connected to the growing alliance. Each archive would be decentralized, secure, and designed to activate only under agreed protocols. These are not just databases, Chen explained during the planning meeting. These are seeds of stability. If anyone tries to rewrite what happened, the truth will still exist somewhere untouched. Patel led the development of the core infrastructure, working alongside engineers from 3 recently allied species. Together, they created an encryption algorithm layered with adaptive learning structures capable of resisting both artificial and biological intrusion. It took weeks of testing before the first archive unit was approved for deployment. Meanwhile, Earth prepared to send diplomatic envoys to the far edge of former collective space, where rumors of hidden strongholds continued to spread. These expeditions were different from Unity 1. They carried fewer weapons and more voices, ambassadors, historians, sociologists. Peace was the mission, but readiness remained the shield. Chen authorized each expedition with a clear directive: observe, listen, respond only if necessary. Document everything back in the solar system. Unity 1 was refitted with new communications equipment and sent on a follow-up journey to systems that had yet to respond to Earth's outreach. Some were simply cautious. Others were controlled by regimes still aligned with parts of the old empire in one. Such system Unity 1 found a derelict station floating near a dying star. No power, no transmissions, just silence. The crew boarded carefully and discovered records of experiments in quantum manipulation similar to the technology used during the battle over Earth. They were trying to replicate what we did, Patel said after reviewing the data, but without understanding, they failed catastrophically. That knowledge is dangerous, Chen said, and now it is drifting in unsecured space. The data was retrieved, sealed, and returned to Luna Base for containment and study. Rodriguez stood with Chen as the logs were reviewed. They thought power alone would save them. They copied form without understanding meaning. And that is the weakness we must guard against, Chen said. Not just in others, in ourselves. As the Archive Initiative expanded, more systems accepted. Earths offer some out of hope, others out of fear, but all understood that the world which allowed empires to rule by domination was fading. Earth had not conquered, it had endured, and that endurance was becoming a template for others. At Luna Base, Chen reviewed a message flagged by internal AI monitoring. It was encrypted to a level matching Earth's highest security protocols, but bore no known signature. Upon decryption, it revealed a short phrase: "The circle is not broken. It has simply changed shape." Chen stared at the screen in silence. The message was a riddle, but its implications were clear. Someone was watching someone who had not spoken yet. Someone who saw the spread of Earth's influence not as a threat, but as an opportunity, or perhaps a challenge. Patel entered with a scan update from the sector Unity 1 had just left. We picked up brief dimensional ripples behind the station. Nothing sustained, but the pattern is consistent with collective early warning probes. Leftovers, Chen asked, or new deployments, unknown. But they are not idle. Whatever remains of their network is still listening. Chen folded her arms. The circle is not broken, she repeated. They do not intend to disappear. Then we stay the course, Wu said, standing near the star map, showing the archive distribution network. We keep expanding, we keep connecting. Chen looked at the stars beyond the screen. Not with weapons, she said softly. Not first we reach with hands, not fists. And if they close the distance with fists, first, Wu asked. Then they will learn again what Earth is made of, she replied. The next wave of archive deployments included deep space drones equipped with basic self-defense systems and advanced stealth protocols. These drones were designed to reach places ships could not to survive in isolation for decades, if needed, and to awaken only when they were found. One such drone reached a dark sector far beyond the fringes of known space where gravity wells behaved unnaturally and time distortions occurred at random. The drone deployed its beacon and waited. Weeks later, it received a signal, a reply in musical tones layered with harmonic complexity. The drone recorded and transmitted the message back to Earth. Rodriguez analyzed it line by line. This is not just a reply, it is an invitation. It is welcoming the archive. So someone out there agrees, Chen said, or at least understands. It is the beginning of something. Rodriguez said, not an alliance, not yet, but a recognition of pattern. The data was cataloged, the response stored in the archives, and the signal preserved for future contact. Back on Earth, the atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. For the first time in centuries, the focus of humanity was not just survival or expansion, but participation, not conquest, not defense alone, but contribution. Chen stood in the chamber of the United Global Council, delivering an address that would be broadcast across dozens of systems connected to Earth's network. We were once told that strength was survival, that empires thrived while others fell silent. We rejected that future. We built a different path, one forged in shadow and revealed in fire. She paused, letting the silence hold. We are not the center of this galaxy, but we are now a voice within it, and we speak not in dominance, but in defiance of dominance. We speak for the quiet, the overlooked, the ready. She closed her address with one final message. Let this era be defined not by what we fought, but by what we built. Let the stars remember. The chamber stood in silence. Then the stars answered. The days turned to weeks, and the movement of Earth through the stars continued with quiet purpose. The Archive Initiative had grown into a galactic network. Unity 1 had returned from its second voyage bearing new agreements and subtle warnings. And yet, Admiral Sarah Chen knew that something deeper was beginning to stir. Beneath the surface of it all, the quiet did not feel like peace. It felt like planning. A new set of transmissions arrived through the quantum network, encrypted in a format not yet encountered but carrying familiar structure. The origin point was unknown, drifting across systems like a shadow moving. Between stars, Rodriguez decrypted the first layer, slowly uncovering patterns reminiscent of both collective coding and early pre-imperial linguistic roots. This was not random communication. This was deliberate, a signal built to be read by someone who had seen the old world fall and the new world rise. It is not a threat, Chen said as she reviewed the content. It is a memory. Wu looked over the patterns as they pulsed across the display. A retelling, perhaps a warning or an invitation, Chen said quietly. The message described a place, a distant system once used as a research node during the rise of the Collective A, place thought destroyed during early expansion. but now showing signs of energy return. Chen authorized a reconnaissance mission composed of one stealth vessel and a team of diplomatic and scientific officers. Their orders were simple: document, observe, do not engage unless engaged. The journey to the system took 7 days. Through quantum corridors and gravitational gaps, the vessel moved, in silence, passing abandoned beacons and long, silent sensor rings. What they found was not a base. It was a vault, orbiting a collapsed star. A ring-like structure floated in impossible balance, its surface broken in places, but its energy signature active. Power flowed through channels that had not pulsed in centuries. The team deployed drones to scan the surface, finding sealed chambers beneath layers of shielding. Strange architecture fused with living material formed the inner walls, and at its center, a core of data crystal the size of a transport ship. Patel led the analysis from Luna Base as the data streamed back. "This is not just information," she said. "This is history. This is everything they did not want others to know." As the layers peeled away, records emerged. Logs of early experiments in dimension compression, failed attempts to create stable time folds, early blueprints for the singularity cascade that would one day be used against Earth. But most haunting were the personal logs they spoke of. Doubt, of fear, of resistance within the collective ranks. Scientists, engineers, diplomats who had questioned the expansion, who had begged for moderation, who had been erased when they spoke too loudly. "This is their silence," Chen said, her voice low and heavy. "This is the cost of blind obedience." The final segment of the data was different. A message encoded in a personal voice, soft, barely above a whisper. "To whoever finds this, know that we tried. We saw what was coming and we tried to change it. But truth, without strength, is a whisper in the dark, and we had no shield to protect our truth." Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. The collective was not just power, it was fear held together by silence. And now that silence is broken, Wu said Chen issued a command that the archive be copied into the network and preserved under highest classification, but made available to all allied systems, with full translation protocols. "They deserve to be remembered," she said, "not just as enemies, but as voices that were lost." As Earth continued its outreach and expansion, the effects of the message began to ripple across the galaxy. Several smaller systems once aligned with the collective began to broadcast their own truths. Small rebellions long hidden were now stepping into the light. A movement was forming not just in support of Earth, but in rejection of domination itself. The Terra Doctrine was no longer just about hiding strength. It was about giving voice to the silenced. At Luna Base, a council of representatives was established, bringing together species that had once been separated by war and conquest. They met not to conquer, but to understand. In the main chamber, Chen stood before the assembly and addressed them directly. What we found out there was not a weapon, it was a memory, a reminder that the road to power is littered with those who were ignored. She paused, letting the silence hold. "We cannot build peace if we do not protect the truth. We cannot lead if we do not listen to those who came before, and we cannot survive if we forget the price of silence." The chamber stood together not as subjects but as equals bound by a common lesson. As the years passed, Earth became a name spoken not with fear but with a complex kind of respect, not just for its strength but for its clarity. In battle it had been fierce, in peace it had been patient, and in discovery it had been honest. Chen walked through the gardens of Luna Base one evening, long after the last transmission had been archived. The stars shone above, but she looked down at the stone path beneath her feet, each step echoing against the quiet of night. Rodriguez joined her quietly, carrying a small data pad. Another system just joined the archive network. He said, "A world once used by the collective as a mining colony. They sent a message thanking us for telling the truth. Chen stopped by the reflecting pool and looked at the water. "It is easy to fight when you are attacked," she said softly. "It is harder to stand for something when no one is watching." And yet she had done both. As the pool shimmered with the light of distant stars, Chen thought of Earth not as a warrior, not as a victor, but as a survivor that had chosen something greater than vengeance. In a world where power often silenced truth, Earth had decided to speak, and that choice had changed everything. In our own world, the battle is often not fought with weapons or firepower, but with truth and memory. Sometimes the most powerful act is not resistance, but remembrance. To speak for those who were silenced, to preserve the stories of those who dared to question even when they stood alone. The story of Earth in the Stars is not just science fiction, it is a reflection of what we can become when we value the voices of the past, protect the vulnerable, and build a future based not on fear, but on wisdom. The future does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to those who remember and those who choose to lead with truth.